The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geotab's Marketplace Partner Webinar. Thanks for joining us today. My name is May, and I'm the Marketplace Content Specialist here at Geotab, and today's host for this session. Just a few reminders for you guys. To not forget, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask in the question box, and we'll do our best to get to them during the Q&A. Presenting today is Geotab's Bradley Quinn, our Channel Engagement Manager, and Pitstop Connect's very own founder and CEO, Shiva Bourgeois. With them, we'll learn more about how fleets can save significant time while improving their bottom line to be able to do more with less with no change to their current resources. They'll also be discussing how AI will become a fleet manager's best friend and looking to the ROI of utilizing predictive analytics and identifying small shifts to make the biggest impact. With that, I'll hand things over to Bradley to get us started.
Thank you, May. Geotab is a leading telematics provider in the world. We have over 3.5 million subscribers. We're in 80 plus countries. We collect more data than any other telematics provider, and our data is cleaner and more robust than any of our competitors. This results in our partners being able to make better decisions. The Geotab Marketplace is part of a Geotab ecosystem. This ecosystem is made up of integrated telematics-related products and services, which Geotab users use to extend the value of that data. In doing so, our partners are able to use this data to provide better solutions for their customers. We're very fortunate to have Pitstop Connect as one of our premier partners. Pitstop brings customers into the 21st century by accurately predicting component failures prior to their occurrence. So it's sort of like looking into a crystal ball and predicting what's going to happen. So let's take a look at the Geotab Marketplace. The Geotab Marketplace has been around for many years. In 2023, we made the decision to take the marketplace to the next level. By dividing the marketplace into several distinct tiers, we're able to identify the partners that are interested in actively growing the telematics business in concert with Geotab's vision for the future. The tier that we're talking about today is the Premier Partner tier. These partners offer valued integration solutions that add exceptional value to the customer. They're highly engaged in the Geotab ecosystem and offer a high-end support system to their customers. Pitstop is one of these Premier Partners. So I'd like to take a minute to talk a little bit about maintenance practices. There's really two types of maintenance practices out there. There's reactive maintenance and proactive maintenance. Reactive maintenance addresses component failures after they occur. The downside of this is additional tow charges when we have to have a unit towed to a repair facility. Additional stress on management for having vehicles that are broken and having to try to find parts and work them into the maintenance schedule. Additional shipping charges from having to ship parts overnight to prevent downtime for the unit. And additional downtime for both the vehicle and the driver. Proactive maintenance addresses component failures before they occur. It provides the maintenance facility the ability to repair failures during scheduled maintenance rather than unscheduled. It provides the time necessary to ensure the parts are on hand to complete the repair without having to incur the additional overnight freight costs. It reduces stress on the technicians because they can plan their time according to the schedule workload. So as you can see, proactive maintenance is a much better route than reactive maintenance. Pitstop leverages this, and this is the key to what they do. By integrating the data from Geotab, Pitstop is able to forecast maintenance issues and address them before they happen. This ability allows their customers to make informed decisions before the result hits their bottom line. So why does this make sense? Well, it's pretty simple, right? Time is money. When we can save time, we can save money. Streamlined processes reduce the time required to complete work. This time reduction results in cost savings for the company. We all know that there's still organizations who do their maintenance on paper. I'm old school. That's one of the phrases that we hear fairly often. Automated systems not only save time, but they also ensure the people who need the information get that information as quickly as possible, often in real time. Again, saving time for the organization results in a cost savings. So what we're saying boils down to this. Reduced downtime results in increased drive time. Increased drive time equals more miles for the driver, which means more money in the driver's pockets. Increased drive time also equals more load capacity. And increased load capacity results in increased revenue. So in short, Pitstop plus Geotab equals more money for everyone, and that makes sense. Now, let's hear how Pitstop does this. I'd like to introduce Shiva Bhardwaj, founder and CEO of Pitstop Connect.
Thank you, Brad. Really excited to be here and partner with Geotab. There's a lot of very exciting things happening in the ecosystem. And maybe I'll start quickly just by continuing on Brad's comments. Automation and AI are such a buzzword. And when you're working at the shop floor, working on managing a fleet, sometimes these concepts just seem like they're passing over our head. It doesn't really make much sense. I personally come from a background of growing up in service centers from a very young age. I'm now the CEO and founder here at Pitstop. And what we realized was that, hey, in this fleet ecosystem, there's actually a lot of information being collected. So with groups like Geotab, as well as all the work order historical data that your technicians are collecting in the market with customers, alongside how vehicles are actually manufactured, diagnosed, what are those troubleshooting guides? When you bring all this information together with AI, you can start to find patterns and get ahead of breakdowns and downtime. It's as simple as moving from a mileage-based service recommendation, which is what most people do, is PM-based reminders, which is great. But the thing with that is it's assuming that every vehicle in the fleet has a similar driver driving similar routes in similar regions, which is not true. That's not the reality of our supply chain today. So with that being said, we need to be paying attention to what the data on the vehicle is telling us. And that's really what Pitstop is about. So Pitstop works in conjunction with Geotab to pull things like fault codes and the raw sensor data. So yes, of course, today you already get access to that. But the thing is, if you're a fleet and you got a few hundred assets, that could mean you have thousands of alerts at any given time. And so that requires like a full-time resource. And even then, there's going to be a lot of mistakes to go through every single fault code to try to look back at history and say, hey, when this popped up, what happened last time? It's prone to error. So what we're doing here at Pitstop is we've taken AI and we apply it on these data sets to say what the likelihood of a vehicle breaking down and failing is because of a series of codes that have popped up, because of how the sensors, such as let's say the battery voltage or the TPMS, the tire pressure, is trending over time. The diesel exhaust system as well is a big item. So being able to monitor these over time and then apply predictions to get ahead of downtime, because the data is there, the knowledge is there. And what's really exciting is that these systems can estimate the future with over 94% accuracy, on average 9 days ahead of breakdown events. So it exists today. It's not pie in the sky future. It's been proven time and time again with different customers. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that here shortly. So with customers, what we've been able to realize in practical value. So forget the terms AI, forget advanced analytics and data. So what does giving me insights actually do for my fleet? So there's three big impacts. One is helping drive an efficiency around service triaging. So what that means is making the technician more efficient, allowing him to diagnose the vehicles before they even hit his shop so he can be that much more prepared. And that increases efficiency by over 17% on downtime and tow costs. If you're preventing, and you know when breakdowns are going to happen, what you do is go from unplanned downtime to planned downtime. You're going from reactive to predictive. And by being more planned, you're now reducing that hard cost related to tow. So every dollar you're spending on tow costs goes right back into your pocket, not to mention the cost of the driver not being able to do his job and that load not getting to where the customer needs it to get to, or that job not being done, depending on how your fleet is set up. And then most importantly, it's enabling the business, the operations, to make smarter decisions faster. In this high pressure environment where getting new vehicles is quite difficult and the cost has gone up by well over 30%, fleets have to do more with less. And so these types of tools really help you get the most out of the assets you have on the road today. So with technician efficiency, what we're able to do is when we work with the fleet, we start actually by looking at all their service history and we do an analysis. So this is all automated through the platform. But what it's looking for is patterns and low-hanging fruit of areas we can help that fleet drive a lot of value. This is an example where we were seeing within 20 days of a PM, vehicles were breaking down. So they had 15% of the vehicles in the fleet breaking down after PMs. So as you can imagine, if you removed those scenarios completely, that would alleviate a lot of pressure, a lot of those chaotic moments from the fleet's shoulders and enable them to run more seamlessly. And that's exactly what we did. So with this customer, what we were able to show is that we were, by providing remote diagnostics and predictive analytics, the health reports that went to the technicians was able to give them this insight that allowed the technician to be better prepared before the vehicle even showed up. So they had the right technician ready, they had tools ready. When those things were not in place, they were able to communicate back with their fleet coordinator or the service, the shop manager, regional manager, and say, hey, look, if you bring it in, it's going to sit here for a few days. So like maybe run it on some local routes. And then when I got some time capacity, we'll bring it in. So this allows you to now go from, again, reactive to predictive, drives diagnostic time up by over 17%. And for this fleet specifically, that saves them about $120,000 per year on efficiency gains by better prioritizing what assets need to actually hit the shop at what given point of time. And so that power now goes back in your hands versus today, you know, driver's driving, he's complaining about something going on in the vehicle. You have no idea what's happening. So you just tell them, okay, go to the nearest service center, come into the shop. We check it out and maybe nothing's really that wrong and we send it back on the road. And so these are the scenarios that you start to avoid completely. And that's how you drive efficiency. So the other area that we see a lot of value is downtime reduction. And what's incredible about Pitstop, it's not just us reiterating fault codes to you. It's taking these alerts that are prioritized by critical, major, and minor, and then looking at what is actually happening at the shop. So by pulling in work order data, we know, hey, vehicle A was alerted around the DEF system. Looks like the DPF was dirty. It went in, and they didn't actually change the DPF, but they cleaned the EGR, for example. So those scenarios allow us to then train the model and make it better over time. And that's how you're able to quantify the actual impact of downtime reduction. So with that, what we've seen on average with our customers is reducing downtime by about 20% across the fleet. Like, this is a big deal. And this is taking existing data that is pretty much impossible for you to manually get through on top of your already time-consuming day and limited resource operations, to making easy insights that are actionable, tells you what you need to do at what given time. It distributes this information to your team, and that ultimately is $400 in savings per service visit. Over the year, that's about $2,000 per year per vehicle. So it's quite incredible. And so this goes to the last point. It allows your team to make better data-driven decisions. Having data by itself is not enough. You need to be able to have information that is actionable. So this is the key word. So like, do I actually need to take a vehicle in for service because there's a risk of a breakdown? And how confident is the system? And then can I trust that system? And so that's where we've been able to work with various customers, from government fleets, logistics companies, as well as mixed fleets. So groups of fleets that might have some heavy duty, medium, and light duty all together. And what we show time and time again is that we can estimate failures with a 94% accuracy 9 days ahead of a breakdown. And that ends up being $2,000 per asset per year, in that range. It depends on the fleet, and we would definitely quantify this for you, but the ROI is a no-brainer. It's anywhere from 500 to well over 1,000%. So it's really putting money back in the pocket, it's making better decisions, and what we like to say is it's really taking you from a PM-based maintenance process to a smart maintenance process based on all the data you have. And that's what takes a fleet from reactive to predictive, ultimately. So Brad's going to talk about a case study that we did jointly with a Geotab and Pitstop customer, which was quite successful.
Thank you, Shiva. So you may be wondering, this all looks great, but isn't it expensive? And this, again, question comes up quite often. In today's world, one thing companies don't have is an abundance of money. Now that said, what if all of this not only paid for itself, but resulted in a huge cost savings beyond the cost of the solution? Would you be interested? But here's an example of just that situation. One of Geotab's customers, Cardinal Carriers, did some benchmarking against some other fleets of similar size. And what they found kind of shocked them. They found that a fourth of their entire fleet was performing 4 times worse than the average benchmarks for the other fleets they were comparing against. So they realized real quickly something had to be done. So they asked Pitstop for their help. Pitstop came in, they used their predictive models to detect a few pending issues. They detected some faulty clutch actuators. They predicted some battery failures, some unsafe brakes. They grouped the service visits to perform the maintenance for these items during scheduled maintenance versus unscheduled. And they reduced the total cost of maintenance for Cardinal Couriers by $133,000. I'll repeat that, $133,000. That's not peanuts, guys. This amounted to $2,000 in annual savings per vehicle, a 25% reduction in downtime, which amounted to 48 hours less downtime per vehicle, and a 10 times return on the investment. So, remember when I said this makes sense earlier? This makes sense. Again, Geotab plus Pitstop is money for everybody. Shiva, how can fleets show the ROI for choosing Pitstop?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Again, very exciting case study. And of course, every fleet has uniqueness, and there's things you're doing already, maybe in this direction. But the bottom line is you want to work with experts and partners that can help you get there, keep your team honest, and then, of course, measure the ROI. So there is a way to calculate your ROI. And what this does is it asks for questions like, how large is the fleet? How many breakdowns do you guys see in a year? How many tow events? What's the cost of these tow events? And so we start to calculate and compare it with existing customers we work with, customers like Cardinal, and then we come up with an estimate saying, hey, if your fleet kind of looks similar to one of our customers, here's what their metrics and savings were. So this is what we believe we can do for you. So it's very simple. It's on the website, so pitstopconnect.com, and we can run that calculation for you. And we're always open to have discussions. Even just sharing knowledge and working with you to teach you about like what's possible and how to get more out of the data you're already collecting and storing. So I think what we have next is we're going to go show a quick video that just shows the platform and the integration with Geotab, where it's single sign-on and Pitstop fits right into your Geotab interface. So I can speak over it because inside there's no volume. So what happens is it takes all the alerts that pop up, fault codes, but also raw sensor information, and then it estimates what's critical, major, and minor on your vehicles, and gives that to you in priority. And then over time, it's looking at the entire fleet and saying, okay, how much downtime are you seeing today, and then what can you do to reduce that downtime? And by following those high priority insights and acting on the right things at the right time, we should be able to reduce that downtime significantly. And so this is actually showing the prediction side of the platform. So on each subsystem, this specifically is highlighting the diesel exhaust system. It's looking for key patterns. We're looking at the urea levels, like the fluid levels, and how fast it's being consumed. We're looking at clusters of fault codes that pop up together that could signal issues, EGR issues. And so through that, you're able to then estimate what engine derate events are about to show up, which can then help you with dispatching. And that takes you right to that appointment calendar so that you can then schedule that in and work with your team in a more collaborative way. So they're getting access to this data at the exact same time. And then, of course, there's ways to add additional information if you want to log the actual service events that have happened in the service bay or with your external vendors and customers, being able to store that into the system because being able to track and understand what actually happened is a very important part. We also do deep integrations on this aspect as well. So it's not required that you use the tools we built around work order management. We will plug in to other players already today in the market. But the fundamental value prop here is there's too much information. You're probably not able to get ahead of it and leverage it as is because there's just not enough time in the day. And so this system is leveraging AI to filter out what you really, really need to focus in on. And that's what's going to help you and the team act on the most important things. So instead of having 1,000 issues, fault codes, you got one critical thing to look at in the past 7 days. Like that's really what you got to focus on. So it's filtering it down to the things that are actually going to cause a breakdown or a failure. And then of course you want to be able to know that as some of these other issues, major and minor, are getting more severe over time, that these issues can then escalate. So that it'll automatically look at them, monitor them, and as they seem to get worse, it will give you that signal and say, okay, this was a minor, but boom, we're pushing it up to critical because of factors like the number of times these alerts are triggering on the vehicle. So how many times are those patterns showing up within the sensors? Looking at other issues that have popped up. So is there like one fault code coupled with 3 others? And then what is that telling us? So maybe it's telling us the catalytic converter was just stolen. Maybe it's telling us the DPF filter needs to be replaced because 9 times out of 10, that is typically what happens. So then you're able to dig in and look at, okay, there's one critical issue, a bunch of majors. What's going on here? So this critical is saying, okay, last time this issue popped up, the EGR needed to be maintained. So either cleansed or replaced. And if you don't do that, you have to do a forced regen or parked regen. And that's just a big pain in most fleets, for most fleets. So you want to get ahead of those scenarios. And then it's quickly about knowing where the vehicles are. Of course, you get this live map, but just being able to filter it by critical severity assets that are within your fleet, and then being able to zoom in, see where they are, and then it just helps alleviate that coordination process. So when we're talking about saving diagnostic technician time, it's about coordinating with these technicians what's happening remotely, and then making sure the shop has availability, and then sending it in. That's how you really can get ahead of downtime and shop efficiency. Okay, great. So that was the end of the demo. Appreciate everyone's time here. We'd be open to some questions and excited to talk to you guys and see what kind of thoughts you have.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Shiva, for that very informative session and sharing of knowledge. It was very interesting to hear how Pitstop and Geotab can work together, and at the same time, what kind of benefits and cost savings partners can get and clients can get. We do have just a handful of questions for you. One specifically was shared with us by Randy. Randy asked, based on your historic sales with Geotab partners, what is a typical profile of the company subscribing to your solution? What's the profile of their fleet, size and class, and do they have their own garage or maintenance operations and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's actually all sorts of customers. We have customers that actually fully lease their assets, like actually Cardinal Couriers, that example, they have a full maintenance lease too. Why they're using us is to keep their lease provider a little bit honest, because sometimes it goes into that shop and they don't even know if they got fixed correctly or not, and it comes right back out and then it breaks down. So that's that's on one extreme. The other extreme is fleets that purely have internal maintenance with their own technicians, and then this is, in that case, the data can flow direct to the technician a little more seamlessly because you're trusting your teammates. So they can see, hey, okay, these are some 3 or 4 vehicles are critical. You can do that remote diagnostics and call the driver and tell them to come in, or say, hey, we can probably wait another week or 2. So there's all these variations. For fleet size, what we see is, you know, if there's like about 100 assets or more, that's where you'll start to see multiple incidents being estimated every month. So you'll start to really see the ROI very quickly. If it's smaller fleets than that, there's still benefits. It's not so much on the breakdown piece as it is about helping you coordinate and organize your data and communicate. So I think it depends on, you know, what are the needs of the organization today? Could they leverage something that alleviates some of that communication time, improve efficiency? And you might be using existing tools. Sometimes, you know, there's the OEM tools, Detroit Connect and other tools, but how can this fit into the workflow? Because it's not just about sending alerts. You can get millions of alerts today. It's about how does that alert feed in to my team in a way they can act on it, that they trust, and is actually going to make a difference. That's where we try to focus our effort.
And that's absolutely a great approach, especially since we are looking at what fleets need, specifically what you get. Do they need the proactive reactions or solutions, or just the reactive one that Brad mentioned? A good follow-up to that question, you mentioned like some fleets are small, some fleets are different, and it all really depends on like what the fleet needs. We do have a question from Theo. Would this solution be useful for like heavy equipment fleets? He's talking about yellow iron or even cats or dozers, earth movers, and etc. Would this solution be useful for those kinds of heavy equipment fleets?
Yeah, so it is more focused on, you know, over the road type of heavy duty asset. So it depends though. If there's all the telematics data is being passed through Geotab, then it will work. So there is some off-road vehicles we've worked with, but it all depends on what data today is flowing through your Geotab telematics connection. And based on that, things like those battery algorithms or diesel exhaust algorithms will be enabled. So I think that's something we'd be willing to talk to you about, even look into what data you have access to through Geotab, and then give you that answer directly.
Okay, that's a good response. Thank you for that, Shiva. One question to ask, a bit more generic approach or more overarching question. Does the solution, or does it need to have a strong preventive strategy before starting with predictive analytics? Since it was discussed earlier that you mentioned AI and predictive analytics, does it need a strong preventive strategy before starting with one?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, not really, because what we're trying to say is we'll actually give you some baseline PM schedule for your fleet, so those alerts will pop up too. But the point is, like, let's say you're too busy, for whatever reason. So sometimes you're missing things on vehicles, even PMs, you're missing it. There's just not enough time in the shop. So now let's say you're over swamped like that. What do you want to do? What you really need to do is just prioritize the stuff that's going to fail. Sometimes you can push a truck out by a week or 2 and do the PM a little bit later. As long as it's driving smoothly, it's not being overworked, it's not going on like crazy routes, then yeah, you can push it out a little. But there's other vehicles that are being pushed to its limit, and it definitely needs to come in sometimes sooner. Get the PM done, but let's look at the DPF. It's probably clogged right now. So this helps you get more organized and get ahead of the things that are painful. The problem with, in our opinion, of a pure PMs based approach that's really well put together is that you're sometimes over maintaining. You're bringing vehicles very frequently because that's the only way to keep up with downtime. And so that there's a cost to doing that. So what we believe is that this will help you do what you really need to do and not overdo it, but also not underdo it and miss things. So it's just being smarter with the data and helping you be efficient. I think that's what efficiency is all about.
Good point, and that also answers one of the questions we have on, which is, do the fleet managers have to have an analytics background or hire additional IT help to implement or use the platform? I'm hearing from your previous response that it's a very adaptive solution, right?
Yeah, and we are your extended partner. So we have a very elaborate customer success team that's going to be working with you at some frequency that we decide together. So whether it's monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly, depends on what you want. But at that point, we're there for you, with you, helping you answer those questions.
Amazing. Okay, we have one more question from Nick Thorne. Does your product classify the severity of individual faults, for example, critical, do not try, high, must service soon, and whatnot?
Yeah, we have a recommended action. So it would say something like, try to bring this asset in as soon as possible. If it's critical, typically that's what it'll say. If it's major, it might say, hey, this is a transmission issue. Contact the driver. Is he experiencing anything as he's switching gears? Or it might say, your PM, your next service visit is coming up in a week or two. Just make sure we double check the transmission at that time. And if it's minor, it typically says, don't worry about it. We'll keep an eye on it. If it escalates, you'll get an alert. So we do have these recommended actions associated with the severity.
Okay. We have time for one last question also from Nick. Thank you for submitting your question, Nick. Are there APIs available to ingest the fault data into internal products or dashboard?
Yes, everything in the dashboard that was shown in the demo, we build on APIs that we created. So everything is API'd, if that makes sense. Any piece of data on our system, you can query through an API.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you for that Q&A, and thank you for those who submitted those questions. Thank you, Shiva, for answering them, and also, again, willing and able to share the knowledge to know more about the solution with Pitstop Connect. With that said, I guess that was another great session on the books. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. If you have any further questions regarding today's topic, please do not hesitate to reach out to your account managers or the marketplace team. On the screen right now is the contact details of Pitstop Connect. Feel free to email them, visit their website, and book a demo. And likewise, and I'd like to take this opportunity to just thank our presenters, Brad and Shiva, for sharing, again, your knowledge of what's up and what's the new best friend for fleet managers, brought to you by Pitstop Connect. And that's our up for today. Until next time, I'm May, and on behalf of Geotab and Pitstop team, thank you for joining us, and let's have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.